say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so holy we held at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming. And the rockets rattle, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there.
Shoulder, pump. Right, peace. Forward, pump.
So wasn't Brooke Tanner amazing? Brooke Tanner is a sophomore at HB Woodlawn, where she sings with the Select Women's Camerata this school year, and will be in Chamber Singers next. She's also a member of the TRM Music Honor Society and the Gay Student Alliance, and thank you all for sitting down. So there are going to be flashes of nervousness that you'll probably see here up here today, and not just from me, obviously, because public speaking is always a nervous sort of thing for anyone who's done it or anyone who's observed it. But again, thank you, Brooke. Thank you so very much. And thank you all for being here today to celebrate and support our LGBT colleagues and coworkers. I'm Wilfredo Calderon. I'm a 25-year employee plus with the Department of Parks and Recreation, currently working as a community relations manager. So, to help us celebrate LGBT Pride today, we're asking you, how do you connect with the LGBT plus community? You should have received a colored sticky on your program and a pencil when you walked in. If you didn't, there'll be some folks in the back with pencils, and they'll raise their hands, and you can get one if you need one. But what we would like for you to do is to write on the note how you connect with the LGBT community. Do you know family? Do you have friends, coworker, or yourself that is LGBT identified? You can also write down how you support the inclusion of LGBT community at work, in your community, or at home. So outside in the atrium, there's a white poster. It's divided into colors of the rainbow flag. Place your note in the color that matches, and we will create a rainbow of support and inclusion. So today we have an exciting program. I hope you're going to join us afterwards in the atrium and enjoy some refreshments donated by Freddy's Beach Bar and Grill and fireworks. But first, a public service announcement. What is an ally? Well, some dictionaries will tell you that an ally is someone who is associated with you because of a common interest. For me, the common interests I share with the LGBT community are a firm belief in equality and human dignity. I think everyone can get behind that, equality and human dignity. So what does it mean to be in alliance with the LGBT community? In particular, what does it mean to be a straight ally? Well, there's no shortage of reading material out there that'll tell you. In fact, most of what I found out there were lists, frankly. There was a list of 5 things that you must believe to be a good ally. There was another list, 25 things that you must be doing to be a good ally. In fact, I found a list of 150 things that you must believe and do to be a good ally. right? Lists are good. They help us stay organized, they keep us on track. But it doesn't have to be that complicated. For me, it comes down to one belief: equality. We can all get behind it, and we can all believe in it. So it leaves us with a list of things to do. So what do you do? How can you be an LGBT ally? Well, I've narrowed it down to 3 things. Yeah, I looked at a lot of lists. First, put your assumptions in check. Seriously, we all do it. We all make assumptions about the people around us based on how they look, where they're from, what they look like, how they speak. We do it. We all make assumptions. In fact, I'd have to say that maybe there are, maybe 100 people here, right? It might be safe to say that when I first walked up here, there might have been at least one person who said, "Wilfredo? Right? And it's okay. Put your assumptions in check. Next, get educated. There's a lot to learn about the LGBT community, about the LGBT causes. There's just so much out there. Get out there and learn. And if you know stuff, learn some more stuff. That's what I've been doing. I mean, most of my learning, to be very honest with you, comes from my teenage children. A lot of what I've been learning lately is really opened my eyes up to realizing that maybe I'm not as enlightened as I would like to think I am. I mean, our conversations about just gender neutrality alone have shown me that that's an area of challenge for me. Describing people in ways that goes beyond gender. You know, for my children, it's easy. And I admire that, and I aspire to be like that. So get out there and learn and share. So the third thing, let's see, we got assumptions, check. Learn some stuff, check. What's the third thing? Oh, speak up. Speak up. Many of us have been in the room when the joke has been said, right? It could have been about any topic. It could have been about any sort of thing, but we knew at the time that we heard it that it was inappropriate or it was wrong, and maybe we didn't say anything. We didn't want to be that person, you know, at the party that, you know, sort of just like messes things up. But we know it isn't just about jokes. Things are said that are hurtful to members of the LGBT community. And if you're uncomfortable saying something at the time or when you hear about it, think about this. One of the people in that room or in that space could be a member of the LGBT community that just isn't ready to come out yet. Or it can be a father of a lesbian daughter. That individual, it's personal for them, and it's also hurtful. So speak up, say something. So very quickly, just a quick poll from the room. I just want to get a sense of where we are as an audience. Totally voluntary, don't have to participate. By show of hands or a nod, does this phrase resonate with you? I am super ally. Let's change some laws. Okay, it's good. All right, how about I am starting to get it and I'm focusing my time on learning? All right. Or how about I'm not really an ally, but I'll listen. So interestingly enough, not a lot of hands raised in the room here, but there are a lot of people who are in that position. And I say, open yourself up to being open to talk about it with people who may be hinting at it. So I'm going to move us along because we've got a great program ahead, Please know, though, that there's just not one way to be an ally. There are a lot of different ways to be an ally. And there's a lot of material out there, and I encourage everyone to read and share. If you'd like to get involved, learn more about the newly forming LGBT+ Employee Resource Group, you can sign up to receive information on meetings and upcoming events on AC Commons under Employee News and Events, LGBT Pride under Councils and Committees, and it should be on the screen behind me, right? Okay, cool, I don't have to look back. All right, right now, I have the honor of introducing one of the members of the county's executive leadership team to welcome you as well to this amazing event. Greg Emanuel was appointed Director of Environmental Services in July of 2012. DES has over 700 employees. Greg was born in Fremont, Nebraska, raised on a grain farm, very small town, seventh of eight children, Catholic family. Chose not to join the fraternity at the University of Nebraska, where one brother was frat president and the other Rush chairman. He joined the Air Force, by way of the U.S. Air Force Academy, served over 21 years during the Don't Ask, Don't Tell era. He's a husband to a wonderful wife, Beth. Opposites attract. He's an ISTJ. She's an ISTJ. He is an ENFP. And if you don't know what that is, look it up. I know what it is. He's a dad to amazing kids, Michael, Catherine, and Caroline. First two are pursuing degrees in electrical engineering, kind of a STEM poster family. He's an avid training and fitness enthusiast, a swimmer, an itinerant biker after knee-smashing injury in 2015. He loves most things horticultural and woodworking. Family tree houses touch on both of those things. He still doesn't have cable TV. Amazing. He loves being in Arlington, where he can easily maintain ties to his military past, engaged as part of a great Catholic family at St. Anne in walking distance, plus blessed to live close to work. Mr. Greg Emanuel.
So thanks for sharing that, Wilfredo. And that's not the official bio, but it's kind of fun to kind of deviate and to go a little more personal. So good afternoon and welcome to this year's Pride celebration. So I'm Greg Emanuel, Environmental Services Director. I'm just providing a few welcoming remarks on behalf of the ELT. And as Wilfredo said, we got a great program lined up today, and a special shout out to Hope Halleck and all those other people who are helping you, but a special shout out to Hope. Thanks. Just a lot of positive energy there. It's great to see so many employees and members of the community joining us today, especially those from DES, of course. So before we go on, some of you are probably asking, what's Greg Emanuel doing up here? What's up with that? You know, the kind of personal bio that Wilfredo just read from, you know, the very, how shall we say, traditional background. How did I end up here? Well, let me tell you a little secret about myself in the workplace. Things that kind of have driven me in my career, and here's the kind of the bottom line. I really, really, really love to lead teams that get things done, particularly in the realm of providing great services and construction. And the very simple conclusion I've reached over time is this. You have to hire, train, and retain the absolute best people to be successful in those endeavors. They're not easy. So if you put any barriers in front of that, about the nicest way I can say it is, you're really only limiting yourself and your team. So let me go back a little bit in time, my 21 years in the Air Force. It was challenging in many ways, but the don't ask, don't tell policy made it even more challenging. I cannot tell you how many great people I met and worked with. Sometimes in a professional work environment, often working out, you know, running or at the pool or at the gym. just interacting with people that were doing great things with the Air Force, as successful pilots, as linguists, medical technicians, protocol officers, logistics officers, linemen, plumbers, wastewater plant operators, HVAC technicians. And they just all quietly chose to leave. They chose to leave before completing a full and successful career with no words being spoken as to why, because that was the official policy. And then usually the truth emerged, or you heard the backstory, got confirmation after they left, because that was the official policy. They sadly separated. So as a straight friend to these members of the Air Force team, sometimes I was their boss, sometimes as a mentor, sometimes just somebody I knew from the gym or the pool. And then as from the big picture of productivity and return on the training investment was so substantial to bring people up to those skill levels, I could only conclude, what a complete waste of talent. What a loss for the Air Force. So when I came to Arlington, things were decidedly different and much more open. And I'm truly thrilled to serve in a community with some of the most talented, creative, dedicated, intelligent, and good-humored people, many of you here today, in this workforce that just happen to be LGBT. Because I want to serve with the best possible people, period. So, in the meantime, back in the Air Force, I am pleased to report that the Air Force has also come a long way. My second child, Catherine, is now a rising sophomore at the Air Force Academy. And she recently noted to me that the #2 position, it's a brigadier general position, the commandant of cadets, is a gay married woman, which would have just been unthinkable in my time. And then last week, I was out there for an appointment. I drove to the main gate, Andrews Air Force Base, and I was greeted by a large and multicolored sign, a big electronic display that said that Andrews was celebrating Gay Pride Month. Again, what amazing transition. The Air Force indeed has come a long way. So while it's great for us to celebrate progress here today, let's put our best thinking and our best energy to figuring out how we tackle any remaining challenges. Thanks for listening. So, speaking of tackling challenges, I have the honor of introducing our board chairman, Jay Fassett, who has been leading the charge in our community for years. Jay was first elected in 1998 and served as a chair now 4 times. He is the first openly gay elected official in the state of Virginia. He's a member of the Arlington Gay and Lesbian Alliance. And prior to serving on the board, Jay was director of the Whitman Walker Clinic of Northern Virginia. Jay and his husband, Bob Rosen, have been Arlington residents since 1987. Welcome, Jay.
Hello, everybody. It won't stick on my jacket. Thanks, Greg, for those comments, Wilfredo and Hope. I do want to acknowledge a couple of my colleagues in the room. We have the Vice Chair of the County Board, Katie Crystal. And another Nebraskan, John Weistat. And I think that's the end of the electeds, if I can see, and then a whole number of people in the county manager's office and the leadership of the county. I'll just recognize the county manager, Mark Schwartz, on their behalf. So thank you all for being here. My job is very straightforward and simple. I have 2 things to do, is read the proclamation from the county board and then tell you a short history, which was a little bit news to me, that Hope provided me about the rainbow flag. So those are my 2 jobs. So first, the proclamation. Lesbian, Gay, Bisexual, and Transgender Pride Month Whereas the June 1969 riots at the Stonewall Inn in New York City precipitated the modern fight for lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender rights. That was the birth of the movement. Whereas on June 11th, 1999, President Clinton issued a proclamation designating June as LGBT Pride Month. Whereas each June, LGBT persons come together to recommit to achieving equality. Just happened in DC last weekend. Whereas LGBT persons contribute immensely to our society in areas of science, education, religion, government, and sports. Whereas a group of Arlington County employees established a new LGBT plus employee resources group to promote a work environment where diversity and inclusion are valued and where everyone can be their authentic selves in the workplace. Whereas Arlington County has a longstanding commitment to equality and diversity, which we are all proud of. Whereas the Arlington County LGBT employees make important and lasting contributions to this community. Whereas Arlington County, Virginia commends the LGBT plus employee group for their dedication to the promotion of equality, non-discrimination, fairness, and justice for all employees regardless of sex, sexual orientation, or gender identity. Now, therefore, I, Jay Fassett, Chair of the Arlington County Board, on behalf of my colleagues and very proudly, do hereby proclaim June 2017 as Lesbian, Gay, Bisexual, and Transgender Pride Month in Arlington County and call this observance to the attention of all Arlington County employees to celebrate the contributions and significance of the LGBT employees and applaud LGBT pride. So that's the official Hope. I'll give it back to you now. All right. There we go. And now the history of the rainbow flag. Again, some of this was really news to me. I'm going to read this. In 1970, Gilbert Baker, the designer of the rainbow flag, moved to San Francisco as an Army draftee. After an honorable discharge, he stayed in San Francisco. He learned to sew. There's that, right? Preconception, right? Making all the fabulous 70s clothes that he wanted but couldn't buy. In 1974, Baker met Harvey Milk. Many of you saw the movie. And Harvey Milk was the first openly gay person to be elected to the San Francisco Board of Supervisors, one of the first in the country. After winning the election, Milk challenged Gilbert Baker to come up with a symbol of pride for the gay community, a positive alternative to the pink triangle. Some of you may remember the pink triangle was imposed by Nazis to identify and persecute homosexuals. That's what a gay person wore when they were identified and collected and put into those concentration camps. That had been reclaimed by some in the 70s as a bold symbol of remembrance and action against persecution. Baker dyed the fabrics himself and stitched together 8 strips of brilliant color into a huge banner that spoke volumes. The original colors were hot pink, red, red, orange, yellow, green, turquoise, indigo, and violet. A few of the handmade rainbow flags were flown in the 1978 Gay Freedom Day Parade in San Francisco. Baker then approached the Paramount Flag Company to mass produce the flags, but pink flag fabric was not readily available. So Paramount began selling a 7-striped version, red, orange, yellow, green, turquoise, indigo, and violet. On November 27th, later that year, Mayor George Moscone and Supervisor Harvey Milk were assassinated at City Hall. Some of you were around and we remember that. I actually moved to San Francisco the next year. The Gay Freedom Day Committee flew the rainbow flag from the light poles along both sides of Market Street for the 1979 Gay Freedom Day Parade. Visually, it looked better to split the colors. They got it down to 6. So as a result of splitting it, they put 3 on one side of the street and 3 on the other. They eliminated the indigo to make an even 6 colors. So the flag became red for life, orange for healing, yellow for sun, green for nature, turquoise blue for art, and violet for spirit. Gilbert Baker said, quote, "The flag is an action. It's more than just the cloth and the stripes. When a person puts the rainbow flag on their car or house or lapel, they're not just flying a flag, they're taking action." That's how we ended up with the 6 colors. It was an even number. Gilbert Baker recently died on March 31st, 2017, at the age of 65. Now we all know the history. Thanks.
Thank you, Greg. Thank you, Chairman Fissette. I'd like to introduce Bill Podolsky. Bill Podolsky has been the Director of Choral Activities at HB Woodlawn for the past 9 years, where he teaches 6 middle and high school choruses, as well as directing the annual musical production. In the past school year, the HBW choirs under his direction have performed for the Roslyn Holiday Market, on the Concert Hall stage at the Kennedy Center, with the Washington Chorus Candlelight Christmas concerts, and at the residence of the Vice President of the United States for Dr. and Vice President Biden. In 2015, the HBW Chamber Singers were invited to feature a performance for the Virginia Music Educators Association Annual Conference. The HBW musical productions have received acclaim throughout the Arlington community. Bill was awarded by the Arlington Association of University Women for Excellence in Arts Education for his production of Footloose. In addition, Bill currently serves as the president of the Virginia chapter of the American Choral Directors Association. Without further ado, Bill.
About 3 years ago, we, the teachers of HB Woodlawn, thought about how we can use the end of the school year time a bit more optimally, recognizing that after the SOLs, there's an opportunity to do something with our students productively. And so we developed something called June Time. And June Time is a period of 3 days where each teacher conceives of their own curriculum, their own activities. And so we create a whole new program of studies. Students sign up for these courses as if it's a whole new school year. And for 3 days, we explore things like the history of baseball, the art of card games, hiking through DC, et cetera. And so it's a wonderful experience. The June Time that I'm hosting this year is focused around this proclamation, this event today. I received this invitation to participate and thought we could make a thing out of LGBTQ history, and that is what we have been doing. We did yesterday, today, and tomorrow. We started our day by educating ourselves, enlightening ourselves by use of something called the genderbread person, or the genderbread, and it is a great visual to understand the different aspects of our sex, our orientation, our identity, and our appearances, the 4 individual aspects that make a human. So I impart that to you. We also watched a documentary, a fascinating documentary called Before Stonewall, as we were proclaiming a moment ago about the importance that Stonewall was for the gay rights movement. Well, we preceded that by experiencing the history from 1920s up until 1969, and another thing to impart to you. And then we spent some time yesterday at the HRC. This morning, we've been preparing for this proclamation, and there are some truly brave students who first Brooke singing the national anthem, and then we have a few other students who are participating in this June Time as we celebrate Pride Month and the history of LGBTQ people and the movement. So, without further ado, it's my honor to introduce Tam Ayers. Tam is a sophomore at HB Woodlawn, and he has uniquely embraced himself in such extraordinary ways. He is an integral member of our music program, both in the band and the chorus. He is also a strong individual of our GSA, our Gay Student Alliance, and leads in both overt and just simple ways of what it means to be a proud queer student. And so with that, Tam has a few words, and I'm honored to introduce him.
Hi. So, one of the first memories I have of my first day of high school, which was last year at HB, is walking into the Spanish room. I don't actually take Spanish, but my teacher advisor was using it to do beginning of the year planning because her room is too small to fit everyone. So we were in the Spanish room, and I walked in, and there was this pride flag on the wall, and I was like, oh my God, there's a pride flag on the wall. Because at my middle school, which was Kenmore, I had never seen a pride flag on the wall anywhere. I hadn't even seen those, like, this is a safe space signs on the wall. I asked my brother if there were those now because he goes there, and he didn't know if there were any, which doesn't really mean there aren't, so I don't know. But yeah, there was nothing like that. We never talked about gay things. And the closest we got was discussing George Takei when we talked about Japanese internment camps in 7th grade social studies. I didn't have any openly gay teachers, and there wasn't anything gay. I wasn't expecting to see a pride flag at HB, so I was like, whoa, gay people. I was really apprehensive about high school because I didn't know what the environment was going to be like for me as a gay transgender person, and I was very pleasantly surprised that it's so accepting and just yay. Okay. I first came out as trans around the end of 7th grade to my friend, who at the time was the only openly gay person I knew other than my aunt. And that went really well. And so I came out to my friend group, but never to the open, like the entire population, because as I mentioned before, I wasn't really sure what that would be like because I had no indication that there was acceptance there, which doesn't mean there wasn't. I just don't know if there was. So I was terrified of being out to everyone. I was like, what if I get like jumped in the school? What if? Sorry. When June came around that year, the Central Library has a display of Pride Month books, or gay and LGBT-related books, usually. And so I checked out half the shelf, and I took them all home, and I read them all because I wanted to get information about me, about my new identity that I'd found. I also read, or in the 3 years since then, I've read at least the entire nonfiction adult section about gay people, which I found some interesting books. Let's just say that. And so I've been very grateful for the library in these 3 years that I've been out, because it's got so many books, and it's so good. And as time went on, I became more and more comfortable with the idea that my assigned gender at birth is not my gender. Whoa. And so I also began to experience the less fun aspects of being gay and transgender, or mainly transgender, which is getting misgendered by random strangers at the supermarket, having to use the girls' bathroom because I wasn't out at school, so I had to go in there, and I was like, this is wrong, why am I here? But then deciding which name I could give to people, which was always interesting. And then in 9th grade, I switched schools, and so I was like, no one knows me, I'm gonna start presenting as male. And I did, and it's been so positive. I've been really grateful for the welcoming environment at HB, and I don't think I've ever experienced any harassment because of my identity, which was a surprise to me, actually, because I didn't know what was gonna be like. And I was wrong in all of my fears and just being like, ah. And the only homophobic thing I've heard anybody say in my 2 years at HB was just, it wasn't really homophobic. It was just, they didn't know it was homophobic. And so I was like, that's homophobic. And they said, okay. Sorry. And so I've been so lucky to live in this very liberal part of the country where I can be sure that my rights are being defended and that I can be safe. I'm so lucky to have a supportive community of people in all aspects of my life, my family, at school, at my church, just everywhere. And I'm so privileged to have this, but I also know that this is not the experience for everyone, unfortunately. I have a cousin who has lesbian mothers, and at her school, it's not just the students who are homophobic, it's the teachers too. I have friends who are not out to their parents and probably never will be. I have lots of friends who have mentioned to me that they hate their states because they can't be out and because it's too scary and they might get fired and just things. And so I know that there are still places, I think there are 20 states where you can be fired because of your gender identity or sexual orientation. And that just blew my mind when I learned that, because it's 2017. Like, why? Why is that still a thing? And a lot of things, including the election, have fueled my desire to try and do something to do that. But I'm a teenager. I can't even vote. I can't even drive yet. 2 more months. Yay! So I can't. What can I do? And I've thought about this a lot. And my reading and my experience, and also our trip to the HRC yesterday, has helped me. Has shown me that one of the most powerful things that can help people to come to accept queer people is just education. And I've done a lot of projects on gay things because I am gay and it's interesting to me. And I think the Washington Post did a survey or something years ago. I don't remember exactly, but they found that when someone knows a gay person or a bisexual person or a transgender person, then their support of LGBTQ plus people goes all the way up. Because some people are like, oh no, gay people are scary and evil. They're gonna come for us. But when you know someone who's a gay person and you know that they're just a normal person, they're not scary and gonna come and steal your children or whatever. It's just, if you know someone, then you're gonna be more accepting. And I don't want to be a politician like Harvey Milk, who is so cool, but my interest is more teaching and things, and so I think that's how I can be more supportive of. Hi, Bill. Okay, yay, thanks. Thank you.
Bravo, Tam, bravo. Succinctly, I'd like to also introduce another brave and incredible student. This is Riley Newman. Riley bravely came out to me as a freshman. Another incredible moment, is an integral part of the HB Woodlawn community, especially our theater program. I welcome, and it's also an incredible singer and songwriter. And so Riley is going to offer his own composition called Queer. Riley.
I don't know if this is it working? Okay, cool. It wasn't earlier. Yeah, this is just a song I wrote about being trans, I guess. So I hope you enjoy it. So if I cut my hair and bind my chest, I'm not nearly as pretty. And just 'cause I won't wear a dress, you simply can't be with me. I'm not your baby girl, but I can be something even better. I've gone against the world, but you'll still run from me to get her. Can you see me? Am I close to satisfaction? I've never felt so packed into the box you made for me. Would you love me if I could only stay the way I was? Because without that, there's no way for us. I know, I know. Change your name and maybe in a year they'll finally say it. 'Cause I'm not anything but queer, so I'll just sit and take it. Lose a letter suddenly, you don't care about what I say. You were such a pretty girl, why would you throw that all away? Can you see me? Am I close to satisfaction? I've never felt so packed into the box you made for me. Would you love me if I could only stay the way I was? Because without that, there's no way for us. I know, I know. I am not your sister or your daughter or your girlfriend, and I won't let you fantasize that nothing ever happened. If I am not enough for you, then go ahead and tell me. Until then, I'll just sit here thinking faster till I can't breathe. Can you see me? Am I close to satisfaction? I've never felt so packed into the box you made for me. Would you love me if I could only stay the way I was? Because without that, there's no way for us. I know, I know.
I don't know about you, but I think we just experienced something very special. Thank you. You know, there are a couple of things we know about things that are important, and one of them is that important things take time. We need time. And as we look at the time, we know that we promised you a 1-hour program, but there are a lot more important things that I just hope you stick around for, please. Without further ado, I'm going to introduce our keynote speaker today, Diane Kresh. Many of you know Diane. I've got a really very interesting bio for her as well. But in the interest of time, let's get to what's really... Let's do the bio. So, Diane was born in Lakehurst, New Jersey, but raised in Arlington. She attended Tuckahoe, Williamsburg, and Yorktown. She is the mother of 2 sons, Matt and Nate, and wife of Colleen Donnelly. She's an avid photographer, collage artist, choral singer, and reader. And you love live theater. A lifelong New York Yankees fan who's still not over the 2004 collapse to the Boston Red Sox. As a child, she revered Johnny Carson and Lily Tomlin. And she recently developed a passion for the outdoors thanks to woodsy wife Colleen. She loves working in Arlington, and she is happy to be here. Now, without further delay, Diane.
I seem to have run in a great circle and met myself again on the starting line. Jeanette Winterson, oranges are not the only fruit. When Hope asked me some months ago if I would speak at the county's Pride Month celebration, I said yes before I took the time to think about it. She quickly added that I should make the story personal, and only then did her invitation give me pause. When I told my wife, Colleen Donnelly, that I'd been asked to speak, she immediately responded with, "Of course, your story is the story of coming out late in life." Okay, I thought, that's helpful. But it wasn't until I told my coworker, Ann Gable, and she said, "Oh, great, I'd love to hear your story," that I realized I had never actually told my story to anyone, and I wasn't even sure what my story was. As I stand here today, you can probably guess what happened. But what you don't know is how I came to be standing here. For as science fiction writer Ursula Le Guin wrote in The Left Hand of Darkness, it's good to have an end to journey toward, but it's the journey that matters in the end. So here goes. Although my coming out is indeed a later in life story, the contours of the plot began to take form much earlier. As a child, I preferred my brother's little green plastic army men to dolls. I played softball. In high school, I was president of the Thespian Honor Society. And perhaps most telling of all, I loved Judy Garland. As I gave these examples, some of you laughed. And perhaps you laughed because what I named are stereotypical behaviors we associate with being gay. The truth is, gays don't have a lock on these behaviors. Plenty of straight women play softball. Just ask Supreme Court Justice Elena Kagan. But your response did reveal the power and the danger of stereotypes, those cognitive shortcuts that categorize, label, and allow us to make assumptions and to judge others in ways that can be harmful. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Before there was a coming out, there was a coming of age, and I'm a product of my time and place. I started elementary school in 1960, culturally speaking, light years before the Martin Luther King March on Washington, the sexual revolution, the anti-Vietnam War protests, Stonewall, the ERA. It was a time of established norms for girls and boys, how they were expected to behave, dress, talk, wear their hair, what professions they could aspire to. And these norms were reinforced in the classrooms, on the playgrounds, in magazines, on television, and in movies. Boys could grow up to be President of the United States, and girls could grow up to be, well, never mind. I was an athletic girl, pre-Title IX, which makes me sound really old. And thanks to my late father and the countless hours we spent playing catch, I never threw a baseball like a girl, yet had few opportunities to participate in organized team sports. For those of you who are runners, it was the pre-sanctioned era of the Boston Marathon, when women could run the race but could not be credited. Some of you may have seen a famous photo of marathon runner Catherine Switzer, whose race bib was grabbed by an official as he attempted to pull her out of the race. Fortunately, her boyfriend, who was running alongside of her, intervened, and she finished that race, but would have to wait a few more years to become an official entrant. I mention sports because they're now understood to be among the best and healthiest ways for boys and girls to learn to take risks, lose their fear of failure, and build resilience and self-confidence. In the early 1970s, when I was starting high school, women's studies programs were beginning to appear on college campuses. As you might imagine, Such programs were considered threatening to the established order, i.e., white, middle-class, heterosexual men. So threatening, in fact, that Pat Robertson, chairman of the Christian Broadcasting Network and one-time Republican candidate for president, wrote in a fundraising letter, "The feminist agenda is not about equal rights for women. It is about a socialist, anti-family political movement that encourages women to leave their husbands, kill their children, practice witchcraft, destroy capitalism, and become lesbians." There was no Ellen on television, no L word. One of the first movies that had any hint of a lesbian plot was The Children's Hour, which I remember seeing on late-night television. It's a dark, slightly shrill movie based on a Lillian Hellman play in which the two headmistresses of a girls' school are falsely accused by one of the students of engaging in an affair. Mayhem ensues and their reputations are ruined. Ironically, the word lesbian was never uttered in the film, and there was no demonstrative sexual contact between the two women. Yet, even the movie poster just had the word different printed next to pen and ink portraits of the stars. Yet an abnormal and shameful relationship between the two women was implied, and the movie ends with one of the women hanging herself. Not the attractive femme played by Audrey Hepburn, but the dowdy, plaid flannel robe wearing Shirley MacLaine. In spite of the film's opaqueness, I got the underlying message. Don't be different, because to be different meant to be marginalized, ostracized. Fast forward to the married years. After college, I married someone I had met in college, and within a few years got unmarried. I married a second time a few years later, lived in a house on Capitol Hill, had 2 children, so far pretty conventional. So what did I know, and when did I know it? In high school, a classmate told me he thought I was a dyke. I don't remember how the subject came up, nor do I believe he was intending to be hurtful when he said it. I think he was curious and wanted confirmation of what he had guessed to be true. I had no idea what the word meant. I was unbelievably naive about such things, and I had to look it up in the dictionary. What? No way. That's not me. Whatever I was doing to come across that way, I needed to stop. But that was just it. What was it? My voice? My sense of humor? The way I walked, dressed, carried myself? My skill in throwing a baseball? Whatever it was, it didn't matter. Fit in, I said to myself. Be like the other girls. Try and look like the other girls. Don't be yourself. Although I repeated these mantras often, they didn't stop the colleague at work from speculating that the only reason I'd gotten married was to have children. I was highly sensitive to any suggestion that I wasn't 100% heterosexual, so much so that I once stopped speaking to a male colleague because he called me a Swiss Army knife type of girl. When I look back through the years, I remember having crushes on women, and women had occasionally hit on me. But I had pushed those feelings and experiences away, didn't share them with anyone, and certainly didn't act on them. I kept their potential meaning hidden, buried, especially to myself. And married family life might have continued undisturbed until something happened that caused me to confront an inconvenient truth. In late 2001, my husband, David Kresh, was diagnosed with an aggressive form of prostate cancer. He had surgery followed by radiation therapy, and for the first year or so following treatment, his health was stable and follow-up visits to his doctor encouraging. Family life returned to normal. But while David behaved as if he had beaten cancer, I was always waiting for the other shoe to drop. That happened in mid-2004, when test results confirmed a recurrence of the cancer, and with it the beginning of an unremitting decline that ended with his death in September 2006. This roughly 2-year period of time in our lives was truly awful. Scary, uncertain, exhausting, to such an extent that my older son, Matt, said that our family put the fun in dysfunction. Seeing David lose first himself and then his life to disease was paradoxically a cue to me to begin reevaluating mine. The choice before me was both simple and difficult. I could either continue to repress my feelings and attractions for women for the sake of preserving the sense of self I had lived with for more than 50 years, or I could acknowledge those feelings and reveal the person I knew myself to be. David's cancer and death did not make me a lesbian, but his death was a vivid reminder that life is a gift that can be returned. Every moment I spent protecting myself from myself was keeping me from answering the question, who am I? It was time to find out. When you come to a fork in the road, take it. Yogi Berra. The first person I came out to in my year of living courageously was my doctor during my annual physical. Her response was to lecture me about the dangers of navel piercing. I assured her that it had not occurred to me to get a ring in my navel, nor did I have any plans to get a tattoo. But I had bleached my hair blonde and had started dressing in black all the time. Goth at 50. I know, what was I thinking? I also read a lot. I dusted off my 1978 copy of Our Bodies Ourselves, underlined key passages in the chapter entitled In America They Call Us Dykes, and I read coming out stories. I talked to my therapist and confided in a lesbian friend. I looked for lesbian meetups, attended DC Pride. I searched online dating sites and went so far as to write an ad and lost my nerve before I posted it. I still had not come out to my boys or my family. I told myself that I would do so when I had met someone and had something to tell. Still keeping things pretty buttoned up because, truthfully, I was afraid of how they would react. Would they see me as I really was and accept me, not be embarrassed? Would my boys still want me to be their mom? When I finally did come out to my boys after I met Colleen, their reactions were typical of who they are. Nate was unfazed, and Matt gave me a copy of the graphic novel memoir Fun Home by Alison Bechdel to read. It's the story of a lesbian and her closeted father. Not exactly the same situation, but I appreciated the sentiment. He brought me up short, however, when he asked, "What about Dad?" What about Dad? Dad, David, and I had been married for close to 20 years. What about Dad spoke to memories that couldn't be unmade. We had shared a house, a history, language, stories, children, promises, regrets. I was the same, but different, more vulnerable and humbled by the prospect of starting over, literally. The love and life I shared with their dad was as genuine as the love I now had for Colleen. My life changes were disruptive, and I had to live with the consequences of that disruption. But I couldn't live without the disruption. The reactions of my family of origin were decidedly mixed. "I never thought I would have a lesbian daughter," was repeated, chant-like, by my mother one evening when Colleen and I were visiting. I think her chanting may even have been accompanied by a rocking motion. Things got more interesting when, while I was out of the room looking for some family photos, my mother asked Colleen to explain how it all worked between women. Colleen calmly referred my mother's inquiring mind to the internet, and that ended that. But there were other reactions. One brother told me that if he saw pictures of me kissing my wife on Facebook, he would unfriend me. Another asked, who's the man in the relationship? And one brother didn't bring up the subject at all and still hasn't. I tell these stories not to call family members out for being insensitive. Okay, they were being insensitive. They were also trying to do something hard. It wasn't only about me. They needed time to adjust and pass through their own Elizabeth Kubler-Ross-like stages to get to, if not approval, then perhaps understanding. I was still a daughter, a sister, a godmother, an aunt, a mom, a partner, a colleague, a friend, the same but different, more honest, more settled, more content. And what about now? In May of 2012, Colleen and I stood before the division chief of the Marriage Bureau in the District of Columbia and exchanged vows before a small group of family and friends. For those of you keeping score, it was my third marriage and Colleen's first. A couple of years later, on the morning of Friday, June 26, 2015, Nate woke us in our hotel room in San Francisco, where I was attending a conference, to tell us that the Supreme Court had ruled by a 5-4 vote that the Constitution guarantees a right to same-sex marriage. He was so excited he could barely get the words out, telling me over and over again how happy he was for Colleen and me. Love wins, and to think I had ever doubted that. Each June, we celebrate LGBTQ+ Pride Month to recognize and celebrate the impact that lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, queer, and other individuals have had on our shared history and culture. Yet to me, a relative latecomer to this party, it means something more. It means standing up for yourself. It means opening yourself up to risk and disappointment. It means finding your voice and speaking out with that voice, and not only when it's safe to do so. It means telling yourself you can when everyone says you can't or shouldn't. And it means being self-seeking and self-loving. For if you do not know and love yourself, then how can you know and love others? Each of you has had and will continue to have challenging moments in your lives when you are faced with choices to go or stay, fight or fly. Those choices will be yours alone to make. And whether those choices are the right ones or not depends on who you are, the true you, the person you are when no one is looking. And while those choices may hurt, and the hurts may linger, as my dear friend Alex reminds me, a phoenix does indeed rise from the ashes, but first there have to be flames. I'll end with a quote from a hero of mine, a woman from an earlier time who felt the constraints of family, traditions, and expectations, and who was herself the subject of whispers and speculations. You gain strength, courage, and confidence by every experience in which you really stop to look fear in the face. You are able to say to yourself, I have lived through this horror. I can take the next thing that comes along. You must do the thing you think you cannot do. Eleanor Roosevelt. Thank you for inviting me. Happy Pride.
Thank you so much, Diane. Thank you for sharing. Okay, so hang with us for just a little bit more. We've got the students of Junetime. They're going to close us out with a performance, which is the song Truly Brave. It's a mashup of Cyndi Lauper's True Colors and Sarah Bareilles' Brave. And they're gonna perform this for us. Shortly after that, we'll go out to the atrium, enjoy some refreshments. I want to remind everyone, don't forget the sticky. There's a flag outside. Make a note of your connections without any other delay. Bill?
Good. You're going to go around the podium. There we go.
It's hard to take courage in a world full of people. You can lose sight of it all. The darkness inside you makes you feel so small.
Somebody's lack of love.
And that's why I love you. So don't be afraid to let them show. Honestly, I wanna see you be brave. What you wanna say, and let the words fall out. Let them show your true colors. Your true colors are beautiful. Just wanna see you. I wanna see you. Don't be afraid.
Thank you so much for that performance. So let's go outside and enjoy some, well, to the atrium anyways, and enjoy some refreshments. And thank you all for sticking with us. And again, speak out, speak up. Thanks.